In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. This is class 31 of our Orthodox Survival course. Tonight I'd like to finish going through the book Nihilism by Father Seraphim Rose. Chapter 4, Nihilism, the Nihilist Program, and Chapter 5, Beyond Nihilism. But actually the ideas, in studying these two chapters, one sees that the ideas in the Nihilist Program are more or less the same ideas that are repeated in Beyond Nihilism. And the fundamental idea here is that the goal of the nihilists was never just to end by destroying things, right? There is this demonic spirit of destruction. They're reveling in their destruction. But they always had the plan, after destroying the old things, to implant their program, to create their new society, right? Because you can't actually just destroy everything. People have to go on living. So what kind of order do you have in which to live? What kind of world are you going to create? What kind of people are you going to create? And we're going to see that their program is to make a new earth and a new man. So it's completely Luciferian. They're aping God. They're pretending to be God. We're going to destroy what God made, and we're going to create a new earth. And of course, the phrase "the new earth" is directly blasphemous, because in the book of the Apocalypse, God says, "Lo, I am making a new heaven and a new earth." So this is their false salvation, their false kingdom of heaven that they're going to build on earth. And remember, this echoes a theme we've had throughout our course, which is the trap of chiliasm. Remember the early heresy that Christ is going to come to earth and establish an earthly kingdom. And so all forms of earthly utopia ideologies could be called chiliasm in a way. And this is just another very demonic chiliasm. Ultimately, all chiliasm is demonic, but this is one that's especially terrible. So in Chapter 4, the author outlines the 3 points of the nihilist program: the destruction of the old order, making of a new earth, and making of a new man. So the destruction of the old order, we're very familiar with that. This is what we've been talking about since the whole age of revolution began. The destruction of the old Christian order in the Christian nations, whether the Orthodox nations in the East or the Protestant Catholic nations in the West, but the destruction of the Christian order. And then ultimately destruction of all traditional orders. As we were quoting this Michael Ledeen, this neocon ideologue last week, saying they want to destroy all traditional societies, whether they're Muslim or Chinese or Indian or Arabic, whatever. Just go out to the world and just destroy everything and create their own utopia, right? Their own
unique.
Their own
unique.
Their unique.
No, unique. Just for one.
Part.
Antichrist.
Yeah, one. Just make the world one, because they're preparing the way of Antichrist, of course. And so we're very familiar with this destruction of the old order. And we know that the revolutionary dogmas called for violence. The more destruction, the better. They wanted to kill as many people as they could, destroy as much as they could, to get everything out of the way so they could build their new world. And really, Father Seraphim, or Eugene at that time, is writing in 1962. It's only 17 years after the end of World War II. So in his mind, everyone of that generation, World War II was very real to them. Right? It had just happened. And they still remembered it very well. And they knew that with World War II, the mission was basically accomplished, right? With all these revolutions and then 2 huge wars, these cataclysmic wars, that the old civilization was essentially destroyed, and that they could start building their new order on the ruins of the old. So that what's the making of this new earth? This is now we're going to cycle back to 2 things we've met already, which was liberalism and realism. Remember, we said earlier when we started the book, we said that even though Father Seraphim talks about 4 stages of nihilism, the 4 stages don't just completely succeed each other. The old ideas keep coming back and being recycled in each stage. So pure destruction cannot build anything. So to build something, they have to go back to their earlier stages that propose to have a positive program. And then bring those ideas, now that the old order is out of the way, they can take those ideas that in the 19th century were revolutionary, but now in the 1960s, when he's writing, they're now become the establishment. They become the establishment ideas. They're no longer revolutionary ideas believed by a few elites. They're the ideas that now the masses have accepted. So what are these ideas? The idea of liberalism is that you don't need God to build a beautiful utopia on earth. There's no such thing as original sin. Man is primarily good, and if man decides he can just make progress, there'll be no more poverty, no more sickness, ultimately no more death. You can figure out, science can figure out a way for you not to die, and you'll just have this beautiful world where everything is wonderful. Okay, that's fundamentally, that's the idea of liberalism, classic liberalism, that we just tolerate everyone, and we're all ideas we're free to express our ideas, and we're all just going to love each other and take care of each other. It's kind of Rousseau's vision. Remember old Rousseau from the 18th century, Rousseau's vision that man doesn't really have original sin, he just needs to express himself, and everyone needs to just accept each other, and everything will be wonderful.
Savage.
The bon sauvage, yes. But concomitantly with this bon sauvage is scientism or realism, which is the idea that with science we're gonna create this new world, right? So liberalism says man does not have original sin, and we just have to get rid of all these old restraints and just have freedom. And then realism says yes, and with our freedom we're going to use science, and only science gives truth. By science they mean strictly empirical, experimental science. That only that is truth, and we're going to use that truth to build a technology to build a new world.
Sounds good.
So what? Yeah, that sounds great, right? So they want to remake the earth into they want to complete man's conquest of nature and create an artificial world. Now this theme, one quote unquote cultural icon of modern American culture is the movie 2001: Space Odyssey. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but it's a very weird movie. It's made by Stanley Kubrick, who is you can write a whole book about him, insofar as this whole nihilistic program is concerned. And the movie is really about man evolving to a new stage, right? But the transition to the new stage has to be midwifed by his technology, which becomes smarter than he is. So there's a computer in the movie there's a spaceship that's going to Jupiter, and there's a computer in the movie, the HAL 9000, that has figured men out, and now it's smarter than the men. And so the men have to, it kills one of the men, and the other man has to turn it off so it doesn't end up taking over everything. But then the man goes to a moon of Jupiter, and he meets this monolith that's been put there by aliens, and the monolith zaps him, and he gets transformed to a gigantic super embryo of the Superman that's floating through the universe, and we're going to become the new race. Okay, so it's this bizarre combination of pseudo-mysticism about man evolving to a new stage with the absolute trust or the absolute worship of technology, right? That we're going to invent this technology that's going to be our midwife, that's going to bring us to this next stage of evolution. So that's the new world that they're creating, and so it's obviously, is demonic, right? So by 1962, you don't have to go to 2001: Space Odyssey and go to monoliths and cosmic embryos. You can just go back to 1962 and read Father Seraphim, and I'm going to quote now on pages 81 and 82 a whole paragraph. It is, of course, no secret to contemporary philosophers and psychologists that man himself is changing in our violent century. How much people have just changed since, say, the year 1900. Under the influence, of course, not only of war and revolution, but of practically everything else that lays claim to being modern and progressive. We have already cited the most striking forms of nihilist vitalism, whose cumulative effect has been to, he's going to have a number of important terms here. Uproot, disintegrate, and mobilize the individual. So you're uprooted. The French word is déraciner. You're deracinated. That's an English word, deracinate. To deracinate someone is to totally uproot him from his roots.
It's Latin.
It's from Latin, from radix.
Romanian.
In Romanian is the same word.
Dezrădăcina.
Yeah, so you uproot the man, you pull him from his roots, then you disintegrate him. In other words, you disintegrate his family life, then you disintegrate his mind, so that all of his old concepts are disintegrated. They're pulled apart. And so you can just take the pieces of his mind and put them back together again
In a different way.
the way you want. Okay? And then mobilize the individual. Everyone becomes mobile. No one's still anymore. Everybody's moving. They're either literally moving from one place to another, or they're just running around every day in their car, or their minds are always moving, but they're moving. They're always in motion.
Part of something.
They have to be part of something, right? And they can't rest. They can't be still. They can't be still. Okay? To substitute for his normal stability and rootedness, most people, for most of history, have been, whatever their problems were, they were rooted and they were stable. They lived in one place. They knew the same people all their lives. They believed the same things all their lives. And they didn't feel the need to be running around constantly active. Extroversion, extreme extroversion, has been now identified as the normal personality, right? So you're only functional if the more extreme extrovert you are, the more functional you're considered to be, right? Because they have to make this extreme. And America, in particular, was a laboratory of extroversion. And that's predictable because who came to America? The most extroverted people came to America.
Uprooted.
So there have been uprooted people. So there have been studies, for example, of families who were separated, and some families stayed in the British Isles, others came to America. So there are Smiths in England and there are Smiths in America, same blood, same DNA, but after a couple of but they noticed that when they studied their personalities, the ones who came to America were all extroverted, right? They were constantly in motion, right? And I'm not saying that to attack America, attack my country. I'm just saying that this is part of the experiment, right? To make a new kind of person, to bring all these highly extroverted, constantly busy people here, right?
Longer.
And then you create a new culture, but then through Hollywood and TV, you export that culture. The rest of the world starts to regard that as normal. That's admirable. A child in a village in Asia somewhere sees an American commercial with kids are on skateboards, and the scene changes every nanosecond. They're on a skateboard. They're drinking a Coke. They're dancing. They're in constant uproar, constant movement. And the little kid in the village in India or wherever says, "Well, I guess that's normal. That's admirable." You see, I want to be like that. You see, or the child in a village in Eastern Europe says, the way my grandparents live is boring. I need to go to the city and go to nightclubs because that's, you have to be in movement. You have to constantly be, and that's, remember, this is an aspect of what we called vitalism. Remember the second stage of nihilism, vitalism, where there's no, what's important is not truth or meaning. What's important is the maximizing your emotions and having thrills and trying to transcend your humdrum daily existence through intense experience. Right?
There's one more is lifelong learning.
Oh, lifelong learning. So you can never rest. like well, if you're in IT, right? You have to keep getting new certifications, constantly being forced. And I get frustrated with this. Of course, I'm not a techie person. And then every time I get an update in my computer and I have to learn some new thing, I go, so I said they're messing with our minds because there's no reason. The old system worked just fine. Why are they doing this?
I have to recertify it every 3 and then every 5 years.
Right.
On my,
So constant change.
And it's so expensive.
Constant
it's
change.
Money.
Constant change. When I remember being in college. Next year will be my 40th anniversary of my graduation. So, over around 40 years ago in college, and taking a course on modern religious philosophy, and there was a whole article on Protean man. Proteus was the god in Greek mythology that constantly changed form. So this religious philosopher was saying, we have to have a new religion because people don't say the same anymore. We have to have a religion that matches Protean man. Because people are changing their personalities, they're changing their interests, they're changing the way they dress every couple of years. Right? They're constantly changing. See? So what this says, of course, we know that even common sense would tell you that this creates kind of a schizophrenia or a disintegration of the personality. Right? So this whole mobilizing, the idea of mobilizing the individual. To substitute for his normal, this is the author's words, Eugene Rose's words. To substitute for his normal stability and rootedness a senseless quest for power and movement. Like the boys are addicted to video games, right? Power. It's vicarious power. They're not really shooting the monster or whatever, but it's constant movement and a sense of power. And to replace normal human feeling by what? A nervous excitability. Mm-hmm. He was very astute. He was just watching the people around him back in San Francisco back in '62. A nervous excitability. We're always excited about something, right? Nervous. Something big is about to happen. Something new is about to happen. I've got to be excited about it. And of course now, back in 1962, they didn't have 24-hour news or the internet. they just had a news program. They had the 6 o'clock news and 10 o'clock news and the newspapers. But now we have 24-hour news. So they create some kind of insane drama like this Brett Kavanaugh nomination or something like that, or some insane drama about Trump and Russia, or all these stupid things. They create all this theater and this drama, and they get everybody on two sides watching it 24 hours a day, worried that their man's going to lose, that their side's going to be destroyed, and they're just obsessed with this, and they're glued to these screens, and they're obsessed with these constant. So you're never allowed to rest. You see.
We were in Las Vegas years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In a hotel we were staying.
Oh, Las Vegas.
Had, casinos,
Mm-hmm.
and people I've seen there, I haven't seen people so upset
Yes.
and nervous, and
Well, casinos are demonic.
I told my son, if you touch one machine, your hand it's falling.
Casinos. I just had
they had them everywhere.
No,
so-
one of our Orthodox brothers. He was at my house the other night, and we were getting ready for bed. He was staying over to pray and get ready for communion and so forth. And he got a call, 11 o'clock at night. That's my cousin's wife. They're at the casino, and she lost him. She can't find him, and she was upside down. She couldn't think straight. Why? Because they walked in there, and the demons just grab you, and she couldn't even. Finally, she found him, right? But she was in a tizzy. She was just upside down.
It's a terrible place.
Yeah, it's a terrible place. You go in there, no windows and no clocks.
Sick people with oxygen.
You don't know if it's day or night. You don't know what day it is, what time it is, and you're in this. It's really hell. I've only been in a casino once or twice, and when I walked there, I said, well, "This is like a preview of hell. This is really."
Well, we had to go through because
Yeah.
they put them so you are attracted to play.
Yeah.
You have
We
to
had
go
to
through.
go through, and we've seen. I was, wow, this
Yeah.
is casino. This is.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Yeah.
it's absolutely diabolical, right? But you make life a casino. You see, you don't have to go to the casino. You can just be looking at the news or whatever, and you're worried about fortuna, about luck. Not going against you. You see, something bad's about to happen. Something bad is always about to happen. You see.
No, it didn't. We were
Yes.
just fine.
Exactly, we're just fine. It didn't happen, and we're fine. But you have to realize. You have to be able to step back from it, not get trapped by it. You see. So this new man is rootless. He's discontinuous with the past.
Mm-hmm.
He has no past and no future. We've talked about this before. So he's the raw material of so that a demagogue or an oligarchy or an elite can mold him, right? He's just raw material, right? He thinks he's a free thinker. He thinks he's a skeptic, that he's hard-nosed. He only wants to know the truth, right? He doesn't want all that religion and stuff. He just wants to know the facts. He's closed only to the truth, but he's open to every new fashion, right? If the new book comes out, he's open to that. He's going to talk about that, and if you don't go along with it, well, what's wrong with you? But then next year, he'll have forgotten that book or that show, and he's on to a new thing. Maybe the opposite. Yes, who knows? And he doesn't even know it's the opposite, right? Because, when you stop believing in the true God, you'll believe anything, right? He has no foundation. He's proud of being a seeker after some new revelation, ready to believe anything new. I'm open-minded. G.K. Chesterton once said, an open mind is like an open mouth. If you leave it open too long, it collects flies. And also, modern men want to see themselves as planners and experimenters. We're experimenting with new forms, and he worships facts because he's abandoned the truth. The world is this vast laboratory in which man is free to determine what's possible, right? We're always experimenting. We're pushing the edge of the envelope. We're finding out what new thing is possible. And Father Seraphim goes through in pages 83 to 85. He talks a lot about the new art, that this new man is captured visually in the new art. Look at 20th century art and the way they depict people. It's absolutely horrible. It's horrifying, right? It goes from the grotesque to the absolutely unrecognizable. It's just lines and dots and stuff. But it's all very grotesque. Or if you look at, of course, now we have all this science fiction and fantasy movies and so forth, and they're always showing these new aliens, right, which are all just horribly deformed human beings or deformed animals. So they can't create anything new. They can just deform, just demonically deform what God created. So the new art, if you want to see the nihilist program visually, just go to the new wing of the National Gallery in Washington, which is the modern art wing of the National Gallery, or go to the Guggenheim in New York, and or just the modern art exhibit here in Denver. We have a big art museum here, the DIA,
Detroit.
and here in Detroit, yeah, and you see the modern art shows you their mindset depicted visually, which is chaos. It's aggressive, right? It's there to shatter your ideas of normalcy and reality. And it's also there they intend to fool you or to humiliate you by getting you to say that it's good or that it's getting you to admire it when they know it's really stupid. And if they can get you to admire it, then you've degraded yourself.
Because it's fashionable.
It's fashionable.
You're
Yeah.
open mind.
Yeah. Oh yes, that's so. It's got so much creativity, or it's so provocative, or whatever. They make up some kind of nonsense.
And they have a picture with a dot.
With a dot, yes.
And you have to say, wow.
Yes. Or in music, there's a so-called composer named John Cage, and one of his compositions was something like 5 minutes of silence or something like that, where he came out on the stage. People would pay money. He'd come out on stage, sit at the piano, not play anything, then walk off. And they go, Or sometimes he composed music that would say, the pianist must drag chains across the strings. So he'd come out on the stage with a beautiful concert grand piano, and then get chains to go, brung, brung, brung. And everybody go, hey, all right, that's genius. He's amazing. He's a genius. And so this is, and they're humiliating. They're humiliating the elites. I mean, these are all the most educated, the wealthiest people, the most cultured people, right? So they're humiliating the elites.
And they will create monsters, their children.
Yeah, and their children the children of the elites will become messed up, right? So he goes into he doesn't talk about music. I love music, and I think more about music than I do about visual art. But Father Seraphim repeatedly in the book, in many places, he talks about art, visual art, and all his notes and the lectures we've been studying. So obviously he was someone who loved art and cared about and felt the power of visual art. But we could also
music is more powerful.
I think music. My personal opinion is that music is more powerful. Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Now, chapter 5 is beyond nihilism. So beyond mere destruction, the nihilists have to have a program to go beyond nihilism, to build something and to create their new age. So the author is writing 1962. It's only 17 years after World War II.
Just like 9/11 for us.
Kind of like 9/11, yeah. The early 60s is like things are about to happen. And there are several 9/11 moments in American history. The big 9/11 moment in my childhood was the assassination of John Kennedy. The assassination of John Kennedy was a public drama, an orchestrated, staged initiation into terror, into fear. And it was really an occult sacrifice enacted on this giant public stage, because for the first time, tens of millions of Americans were watching public events on television. Okay, so the first act in this drama was this ritual murder of John Kennedy by various. But there's a gigantic literature on the Kennedy assassination, but
which was predicted 1 year before. In the Manchurian Candidate.
The Manchurian Candidate predicted the whole. Yes, so they were getting ready for this whole thing, and they did it. We don't need to go into exactly who they are, but we can say that it was a planned occult sacrifice, right? And then they traumatized everybody. I mean, I remember being a little kid. I was in first grade. I can remember. Everybody remembers it. Every American kid remembers it. Yeah. I was in sixth grade. It was in the morning. I was in Sister Leocadia's class at St. Catherine of Siena School on Bonneville Boulevard in Metairie, Louisiana, on November 22nd, 1963. And I remember her saying, "The president's been shot. Get on your knees, and we're going to pray the rosary." And then I remember sitting at home with my dad, and watching. And mom and dad. Dad stayed home from work, he was at home during the day, because he worked at night. And we were watching this whole ritual on television. Over and over, showing over and over and over again all the images of the funeral and everything, and so this is a demonic initiation into this new age. Where Now, Kennedy, why did they have to sacrifice? Kennedy was the prophet of this new idealistic age. Father, in the beginning of chapter 5, Father Seraphim talks about, it's the fact that, there are these now, on the ashes of all this destruction, now we see there is a new young idealistic generation. They want to make things better, right? These are the people that thought John Kennedy was going to institute a new, beautiful, they call it Camelot, from the play, a new, beautiful utopia of peace, progress, prosperity, freedom from communism, and so forth and so on. And so his speech became engraved, his inauguration speech became engraved in the minds of all these young idealists, right? Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. God's work on earth must truly be our own. And so God's work on earth must truly be our own. So by building this new progressive America, we're doing God's work. See? Then they sacrificed him. they killed him.
A week before, he had a different speech.
Oh, did he have a different speech before?
He said, "I am going to destroy this."
Oh, that's...
That
Yeah.
might be a good reason.
Yes.
No, this was
Oh, you're talking about the video, the speech where he said that about the secret societies. Yes. Well, that's also an important. Yeah, that's also an important thing. But he had to go. But then they continued this traumatization by televising the Vietnam War. They create the Vietnam War and they televise it in great detail. So the first time in history, people are watching their sons getting killed on television in jungles, right across the world. And our soldiers were totally traumatized because they had no idea why they were there.
drugged.
And they were drugged. They were experimenting on them, and they were selling them drugs, giving them drugs. And so there were so many terrible things happening at that time. And then at home, there's this cultural revolution where America up to that point had been a relatively stable, church-going, family-oriented country. And then in the 60s, everything got turned upside down by drugs, the sexual revolution, and rock music. And they created a new anti-culture. Almost in a few years. It seemed like it only took a few years, from say 65 to 72 or 73, and everything had changed. You see, so but Father Seraphim points out that an idealist who only believes in this world can never create anything stable, or holy, or truly beneficial, because they just believe in this world. So it's always going to end up being some kind of destructive and deformative result.
But it's always preceded by a wholesale slaughter of young people.
Yes, the sacrifice of blood, especially of young people, and the best young people, because all the best, World War I and World War II destroyed the manhood of Europe. The Vietnam War destroyed thousands and thousands of the best, the most patriotic, the most intelligent, the best American young men. Physically or mentally. So to this very day, a man says, "I'm a Vietnam vet." You know what he's talking about. He means he's disturbed. He's psychologically disturbed, right? He never recovered. I mean, of course, there are men who came back and they were so strong that it didn't affect them that way. But a high percentage of the men, and one thing that is, a lot of the literature in the 1920s is about how World War I destroyed the minds and bodies of European manhood, and that didn't really happen. The Americans came out of the two world wars still very strong, but the 60s really did them in. So this is in pages 88 to 91. We run into the term post-Christian age. So now by the 1960s, when he's writing, we're definitively in the post-Christian age in the West. Of course, in the Orthodox East, it had to be done with a violent revolution. In the West, it was done more with propaganda, brainwashing, education, drugs, and so forth. So the prophets of this new age, they're announcing this new age. In the 60s, was called the Age of Aquarius. There's this lewd musical called Hair that celebrated the hippie culture, and the theme song was the Age of Aquarius.
What was the meaning of it?
Age of Aquarius, supposedly it's some new, beautiful utopian age where there will be no constraints and everybody will love each other, and there'll be no intolerant religions and no mean governments, but everybody will just be happy and smoking dope and having free sex and living it up. But the prophets of the New Age, of course, they saw that violent revolution was a necessary cleansing. So the destructive nihilism was the apocalyptic herald of this New Age. But then the revolution moves out of the violent stage to a benevolent one. So that's what's happened kind of in Eastern Europe. What we had violent revolution, right? They had to kill lots and lots of people. The communists had to just kill lots and lots of people. The best people. And that was terrible. But then we kind of got a break from that. But then starting in the 1990s, then the benevolent revolution comes in, right? Hello, I'm from America. I've got nice things for you. I've got all the advantages of our freedom. So now you can have more pornography and you can have more, rock music and more, so forth and so on. So there's the benevolent revolution, creating the new earth and the new man. And all the power, he points out that all the power centers today, whether governments, corporations, whatever, they're all revolutionary. There are no traditional governments, right? They're all, in one way or the other, they're all in this program. They're all on the. They might be, some are farther along than others, some are more open than others, but they all accept these basic premises. We're making the world a better place. We're going to wipe out poverty through science. We're going to tolerate all ideas, except of course the true ideas. But so whether they call themselves Marxist or socialist or capitalist, they're all reading off the same page. So he talks about the three corollaries of nihilist thought. The New Age we've already talked about. The new man, the man God. Nietzsche, of course, is famous for talking about the Superman. And a new kind of society and anarchy peopled by supermen. So there's going to be this anarchy. The age of Aquarius is this anarchy where there's no government and no church and nobody tells you what to do. Everybody's free and they do what they want and everyone's a Superman, right? They've all gone beyond traditional boundaries and they're all just they're a new thing. They're a new race. Okay. Now, of course, this is a spiritual disorder. All of this is a spiritual disorder, right? It's demonic. It's a deformation of the soul. It can only be defeated by Christ. The only answer is Christ and orthodoxy. What lies beyond nihilism is simply more nihilism. They talk about creating a new earth and a new man, but they're just creating more evil and more unhappiness and more destruction because it's all nihilism. Satan cannot create; he can only destroy. Right. So right now, if Father Seraphim was writing back in '62, I don't know if he even could imagine what's going on now with this transgenderism. Right. They're going to destroy. So this is a demonic mockery of creation. Right. So God creates man and woman. Right. And the demons say, we can do better than that. We're going to create this non-man, non-woman thing. Okay, but of course, it's just a mockery. It's a grotesque, horrible mockery of humanity. They're just destroying these people, and they're destroying little children.
The question is, how can you convince people of things which are
how can you convince a parent to do that to his child?
Yeah.
To destroy his own child and be proud of it. Wear a T-shirt saying, I'm proud of my transgendered 5-year-old. And they're giving them drugs. They're giving hormonal treatments and mutilating them when they're children. This is utterly unthinkable, right? So it can only be explained by the demonic. It can only be explained by the demonic. But then you realize that in the ancient pagan religions, what do? They practice infant sacrifice. They kill their own children, right?
Nothing new.
This is nothing new. It's a return. It's a modern, enlightened, scientific version of just the same old stuff. Just the same old stuff. It's just Satan, right?
Even the Romans were raising kids to become catamites, right?
To become what? Catamites. So to turn some of them into eunuchs. Yeah, I think usually they were slaves. I think not their own children, but they were slaves to turn them. Yeah, to make them effeminate.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's sick. I mean, it's just evil. That's right. And so what they're doing is they can't create anything new. So they can only destroy. So this new man they're creating is this mutilated, grotesque non-person, right? Non-human or subhuman that's just been bent and twisted and deformed out of recognition, out of all scope of recognition. This is their new man they're creating. But even if a person isn't a transgender or he isn't mutilated with 5,000 piercings and tattoos and everything, they're just mutilating the mind now through electronic addiction. Writing back in '62, Father Seraphim could say, yeah, people watch TV too much. They go to too many movies. But now, when you have a child who's 6 years old already addicted to an iPhone.
Or a 3-year-old.
Or yeah, people get
My
3-year-olds.
colleagues are complaining about their husbands with the phones.
Who?
My colleagues.
Their husbands.
Yes.
Well,
They will leave the phone down to help around the house or just on the phone.
Well, I have a complaint about the women drivers who are texting while they're driving.
Well, I've seen others doing
Men
their
too.
nails and makeup.
Well, their nails and makeup, that's old stuff. But now the texting and the addiction to that screen, because we know even the technology is physiologically addicting. It activates pleasure centers in the brain. So they've created this technology even if the content's totally good, even if I'm an Orthodox person looking for a good sermon or a chant on YouTube or whatever, that click and getting that visual image, that's satisfying. You see? So it's psychologically and physiologically addicting. So what are we going to do about it? I mean, we're having in our youth conference next week in Toronto, Father Padaskeval, one of our deacons, is going to give a whole lecture. He's going to give lectures to every age group, and he says you've got to become disconnected. You've got to. We've made up a shirt for the conference with the phrase "disconnected" on the sleeve. So you've got just to get the kids to say this is cool. To be disconnected is cool. You got to convince them it's cool. So being disconnected, at least
it's okay.
So many hours a day. Hey, you're disconnected. You're okay. You're off Facebook. You're off social media. You're not tweeting.
Yeah.
You're cool.
It's still normal.
Yeah.
It'll be normal.
You're more normal. You're more cool. You see, that's what we. And so, of course, we all of us in our professions, we need these machines now for our work. If I stopped sending out these recordings, right? If I stopped responding to people who email me, they'd be very crushed. I mean, because they depend on to learn something or to be counseled about something or to answer a question about something. It'd be very risky for me to say, nope, I'm off electronics altogether. I'm just going to write you letters. I'm going to get a typewriter and write letters. I mean, every day I fantasize about doing that. Just getting a typewriter, buying an old-fashioned typewriter, just because my handwriting's terrible. So just typing. I thought, if I could just get off all this stuff, send out all the stuff I've done so far, and just send it all out to everybody, and then close this thing, this laptop, forever, and then just every day of the year, the rest of my life, to write an actual letter to somebody. So in 1 year, I've written 365 actual letters to someone, to 365 different people, with my typewriter, and sign it with a fountain pen with my name. And that's something they could hang on to, like when they could show their grandchildren and say, see, people used to write letters. Anyway, I guess that's a fantasy, but
pretty much.
Pardon me? Pretty much a fantasy, but at least there have to be hours of the day, or say on Sunday. Part of Sunday should be no electronics on Sunday. We go to church, we come home, we pray, we visit an elderly person in the hospital, we take a walk, we make a nice dinner for the family, we talk, we look at old photographs from childhood, something, just anything, but not be on the computer on Sunday, or not on the iPhone. Turn off the iPhone. And now I'm a priest, so somebody might be in the hospital. So I say, well, I have my phone on. If you're going to call me, call my phone. And but don't email me on Sunday, or don't expect me to answer your Facebook message or whatever. But there has to be something. We have to take measures. We have to do something. Because getting back to our subject, creating this new man, they're doing it now with this electronic. They're creating this new humanity, where the people they don't have attention span. They no longer want to read carefully. They just want to skim things, right? And they don't like books anymore. They don't want to read books.
They cannot read.
Yeah.
Not that they don't like it.
They can't process it, right?
The brain.
So they're shifting from they've shifted everyone from a rational or linguistically oriented way of processing information to a visual way of processing information. And with the visual way you can. It's much less definite, right? So the dogmas of the church, you have to be able to read and understand concepts linguistically through words, not images, right? To understand the theology of the church, right? Of course, theoretically, there could be peasants, right, who live in a completely idyllic, beautiful agrarian world where they just go to the church and they see the icons on the walls and they just believe, and they just hear the preaching in church, they just believe. But we don't live in that world anymore, right? We live in a world where we're getting constant input from 1,000 different sources, and we have to be able to fight back with words. We have to be able to think logically. We have to think rationally. And you think rationally with words. But they've reprogrammed people so that they're only capable of being excited or being stimulated by visual images. And so they can be very easily manipulated. Speaking of Facebook, I don't like it. But I was convinced a few years ago that I would reach more people. So I don't post personal stuff. I just post what I write, our recordings on there. But I'll notice, and usually I put an image of an icon with an article. Well, I'll notice that when I just post just a picture, some nice picture, there'll be like hundreds of likes, right? But if it's an article, there might be 5 or 6. So people are more interested in pictures of some cute thing going on, right? Than reading an article. So they are creating, beyond Father Seraphim's imagination, I'm sure, when writing back in 1962, they are creating this new humanity he's talking about, right? So the nihilists dream of a new age. Well, let me go back to point 2 under D. Nothing positive can come from a dialectic with nihilism. What happened was, I remember this, being in seminary in the 70s, and reading a lot of junk written in the 60s, is that all the advanced thinkers were saying, well, nihilism's, all these theologians were saying, nihilism's bad, but we have to dialogue with it because it represents a healthy reaction to blah, 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 right? So, okay, so we'll dialogue with them. So you end up dialogue with it, and you end up just going down with them, right? You don't go into a dialectic with evil, right? You don't talk to the devil, right? You just stay away from him. There can be no dialectic with nihilism. So the question is, now that they're in the process of creating this new man, how do we respond? Well, you don't dialogue with it. You just call it out for what it is. You denounce it. You denounce it. And you don't dialogue with it. You denounce it. So the nihilist dream of a new age has gone from being the hallucination of the few, and that's point 3, pages 95 to 96. The nihilist dream of this new age they're creating has gone from being the hallucination of the few, like in the 19th century, right, to the worldview of the masses. Like the masses are convinced now. After all the trauma of the 20th century, right, they had to kill millions and millions of people, destroy Christian Europe, two gigantic suicidal world wars, and everybody's just pounded and traumatized. And now they've accepted. Oh yeah, I guess we need a new age now. So, but the 60s, when he's writing, now the masses have accepted what prior to 1900 was just the idea of a few elites. Okay. That's why you're telling me your experience, or your friends are saying, "Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality." Right?
No, it's about love and acceptance. They want just to be love.
Love and acceptance. Yeah. So these are just ideas that are just in the air.
And then they take your children.
Then they come for your children. But I told you just now,
You're happy.
one person told me, "Yeah, I don't like homosexuality, but if my child becomes homosexual, what can you do? That's fine."
Still laughing.
Yeah. So that they've just given up, right?
Or also, when
these nihilistic concepts have become the property of the masses. They're almost unconscious now.
you talk to people and say, hey, they try to destroy your child.
Yeah, they're destroying your child.
But the answer of the parents is, we are going to do whatever we can.
Yeah.
I mean, not to stop it.
We're not going to. Well, again, there's no militancy. That's another thing. They've destroyed the concept of Christian militancy. If you're militant, you're intransigent. They say, well, you're a zealot, you're a fanatic, you're a kook. You got to be more loving, got to be more sensitive. Yeah. So Father Seraphim ends the book by talking about hell, which is very appropriate. Well, before he talks about hell, he talks about this idea of Christians as being nihilists, but it's in a facetious way. We're nihilists in the sense that we say this world is nothing, the next world is what's real. We're nihilistic towards the nihilist vision of reality, but that's kind of a footnote in a way. I mean, it's not a footnote in the book, but it's kind of a little excursus, a little sideline. But he ends with very strong paragraphs about hell. The Christian believes in hell and knows how to escape it. We believe in hell, we know it's there, and we know how not to go there through Christ, through the faith, through the church. Okay? The nihilists also knows hell exists, but they want to deny the existence of hell, and they want to create their heaven on earth. But of course, what they do is they make hell on earth, and they prepare people to go to the eternal hell. The final word of nihilism is this: there is no annihilation. They cannot annihilate everything. Right? Nothing of what God created has ever will be destroyed. Man must live forever, either in eternal joy or eternal torment.
Can't escape that.
The souls in hell wish they could die, because they can't die. They're going to exist forever in torment. And so there is no annihilation. God is going to win. God's already won through the resurrection. And the question is what side we're going to be on. So the point of our course really has been to recognize all these false ideas and to recognize when we hear them. And also to realize that these aren't just ideas. These are animated by a demonic spirit. And we have to take refuge in the church. We have to seeing what's going on in the world around us, and also knowing all these things from our study of this history of ideas and this history of this degeneration of the Christian people, that should spur us on to want to go to church more, right? To confess more often, to receive Holy Communion, to pray, not to skip our prayers, to bless our house with holy water, to incense our house, do everything we can to keep away demonic influence, to be very careful about the books we bring in our house, to be very careful about the programs we allow people to watch, or the websites we look at. We have to be so vigilant. One good thing our Bishop, Metropolitan Demetrius, has done in the past year or two is to really emphasize the concept of vigilance. You have to be vigilant, be spiritually vigilant, not walk through life, not sleepwalk through life, just wanting to enjoy yourself or wanting to just not have to think about things. We can't. Nobody can do that. No, you have to be vigilant. Now, our ancestors had to be vigilant because their house could burn down easily, or the donkey could kick you in the face and you could die, or the harvest might fail.
Or the Turks are coming.
Or the Turks are coming to the village next year and they're going to kill everybody and carry off all the women and children. So whether you live in that kind of society or our kind of a society, you still have to be vigilant. Life is about struggle and fighting. It's not about just lying back and just relaxing. And what they've convinced everyone that you just need to just enjoy yourself and fulfill your quote-unquote fulfillment, and no struggle, no conflict, no effort. And so that's death to the soul.
Be nice.
Yeah, just be nice. Just be nice to everyone and get along with everyone, and everything's fine. And but that's death. I mean, when they say go with the flow, well, only dead objects go with the current. Living, or I should say, only something alive can go against the current. Dead things flow with the current. Living things can swim against the current. So we have to be alive. So this really brings an end to Father Seraphim's whole exploration of the roots of the entire scope of the fall of the West from the High Middle Ages to the 20th century. And it's an appropriate place now to put take a little break. And we're going to take an actual break, in that I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. I'll be back. We'll resume on a Sunday, October 28th. And on October 26th, we're going to start doing catechism for the children on Friday evenings. So we're going to move the adult class to Sunday evenings. We're going to have Vespers, and then we're going to have class on Sunday evenings. And then maybe some other people will be able to come on Sunday evenings. I don't know who don't want to come on Friday. I hope so. So we'll resume on October 28th, Sunday, October 28th. Vespers. I haven't decided the time. 5:30 or 6. So I'll announce it. And we'll. I think we need to take a break from studying all these dreadful things, and we need to do at least a mini course on spiritual life. We talk about prayer and the passions and spiritual life, because we have to get. Now we know all these bad things, but we have to know how to fight it. And I think just by recognizing all these bad movements, these bad ideas, bad ideologies, and the demonic spirit, we've already been given some tools to fight it by just being able to recognize things. But we really have to work on our spiritual lives, because without that, we're going to get lost. We don't have the strength. We can know what's wrong, but not have the strength to fight it. We can know our faith. We can have studied our catechism, know our faith, but not have inner spiritual strength to keep insisting, no, this is true, this is true, this is true, unless we're really leading a life of prayer, unless we're really dealing with our own passions and sins. So after our break, we'll come back on October 28th, and we'll do at least a few weeks or a couple of months on spiritual life. Then we may come back and do a part 2 of Survival Course, talking about more 20th and 21st century problems, but I have to think about that. I'm not sure how much more I can take of talking about this stuff. Need to take a break for a while. Okay, so glory to God for all things.